Welcome to the Tesla Economist. Please hit the thumbs up and remember to subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon. Okay everyone, brace yourself. Someone saw a headline. I'm not even joking. It said that BYD profit is up over 200%. That's right, a statistic. How could we argue with that? And this headline even goes on to attribute this increase in profit due to the increase in EV demand. As if before, BYD were not making EVs as fast as they could and just building them for as many markets as possible. There seems to be some contention between a lot of people when I talk about BYD, which I guess is because a lot of you are invested in BYD too. The main thing I say that seems to get their attention is that BYD don't make a net profit from their BEVs. So rather than just taking a headline for our research, even if it was from a reasonably credible establishment, we'll take a look at the actual finances and make our own minds up. Now, if you're a BYD shareholder, you may not like what you're about to discover. It might not settle well with you, as you may not have done your research. As an investor though, you should have done this. Unless you're just commenting with a few $1,000s of BYD stock, then it may not have been worth your time conducting proper research. But for those of you with a significantly larger holding, you should have done this research already. Yet for some reason, these investors have the audacity to tell me to prove that BYD loses money on BEVs. Well, I didn't invest in BYD like you. If you were the one willing to put your money into BYD, then shouldn't you be the one to prove that BYD makes money on BEVs, rather than asking me to prove they don't? Seriously, this is actually what's happening. But okay, fine. I'll do everything I can to prove to you that it looks very much like BYD lose money on their BEV business. Just like every other BEV business. Now, this is a Tesla channel for Tesla investors. Even if you hold BYD, you likely also hold Tesla. I just don't understand why you would invest in BYD when you have presumably also researched Tesla. If you are a BYD investor, you are likely about to suffer some cognitive dissonance from research you should have already done. But don't worry, there's something you can do to resolve that. You can sell your BYD stock and put it in Tesla, if you feel my research has affected your conviction somewhat. So let's begin in me illustrating how BYD still lose money on their BEV business. Firstly, I'd just like to acknowledge that the person who knows most about manufacturing on the entire planet, according to himself, says that it's really unlikely BYD can even hit volume production. He then also says it's close to impossible that they hit volume production at a profit. In fact, Elon has said this on Twitter alone about a half a dozen times, almost as if it means something and is perhaps true. Yet people think BYD have managed to hit profitability, only achieving halfway to volume production on some of their lines. Tesla didn't even hit profitability when the Model 3 reached volume production. But for some reason, people think BYD has hit a profit when only 2 of their BEV lines are half the way to volume production, and the others only around a quarter the way. And Tesla have already been close to triple volume production. Put that into perspective. Think of how much more money that saves in capex and costs of goods. So this article we're talking about stipulates how much of a massive profit BYD has seen increase. Well, we better do some analysis then. The first thing that jumps out is the acronym EV. This includes all of BYD's plug-in hybrids too. BYD's hybrid business has been profitable for some time, so the article is already moot. And if you were a BYD investor who thought this meant BYD made profitable BEVs, then you were just fooled. The article goes on to say it's because demand for EVs has jumped, but demand makes very little difference in this industry. We need supply to increase for growth. So causes are just being made up in this article in a relational fashion. This article was most likely written by BYD's press department, as it is using cherry-picked dates to make out like they're doing better than they really are. It's unlikely Bloomberg would be aware of BYD's financials to this detail. They are using a particularly bad quarter to compare this from. You see, if you pick a quarter that was really bad, and then compare it to a good one, the statistics look better. The Q1 2020 quarter was so bad, revenue was even down over 35% from Q1 2019. So that's hardly a good comparison with growth. Remember, COVID. In fact, if you annualize this amazing Q1 2022 profit from the article, it comes in at 3.2 billion yuan. Well, this amazing tripling profit quarter is still actually lower than the profit BYD used to make as far back in 2016. Now, is it possibly all these new EVs they're building that's creating lower profits? In that the more BEVs BYD make, the lower their profits become because they lose money? Well, That's what the finances are saying. By the way, if you also did want to compare Tesla's growth in profit over that period, it's up even more at 246% increase. Wow, a 246% increase in profits since Q1 2020 and still no increase in stock price. So is BYD the Tesla of China? No, Tesla is going to be the Tesla of China. Teslas get their sales in China from a much larger battery manufacturer than BYD. The thing is, when I was researching Tesla, the numbers just kept popping out for me. They were just too good. So much potential for larger profit margins for a very expensive consumer item. If you could analyze them, then they jumped out a mile away. BYD, well, that's just not happening here. It feels like it's going to be a long, slow process for them if they can ever turn a profit with BEVs, meanwhile being subsidized by other business activities, such as plug-in hybrids and electric vehicles for commercial purposes like buses and sanitary trucks. In fact, believe it or not, only 43% of BYD's revenue even comes from automotive. The EV business can be supported by other activities. Some people compare BYD's success over Tesla simply down to the number of models they offer. Tesla only offer 4 models of BEV. BYD have about a dozen. Or perhaps it's the number of sales BYD generate when you include hybrids. Or even the sheer growth of their BEV business. I bet you Tesla could grow faster too if they wanted to make a loss. FYI, the only reason BYD is somewhat catching up to Tesla in quantity of BEVs sold is because Tesla have been taking a really long time to make their own battery, and it's delayed everything. Once that's sorted, then there'll be no more coming close to catching Tesla. Now the funny thing is, these BYD investors, and I don't mean any offense to you, it probably may not be too bad an investment, but it doesn't do anything for me, and compared to Tesla, it's just a different league. So let's take a look at the finances. Now, I've collected all the financial data on the company directly from their earnings reports. This was quite time consuming as it was not displayed anywhere near as tidy and clear as Tesla's. Anyway, it was a lot of work, so I can see why so few people would get into this. I guess most BYD investors think electric is the future, they think Chinese EVs are going to be a large part of that future, and thus bet on the most likely chance China has. But you still have to look at the financials. Let's start by taking a little look at the history of BYD. At around 2016, BYD was making a profit of around 5 billion yuan with a 19% margin. This was attributed to BYD's very popular F3, the world's first plug-in hybrid. From there, we see BYD's gross profit margins dropping rapidly whilst they expand into BEVs from 19% profit margin to under 15%. And we see 5 billion yuan profit in 2016 change to just 1.6 billion yuan profit in 2019, yet whilst revenue has increased 20%. Do you see? This is when BYD are introducing BEVs and attempting to ramp them up. In fact though, in 2020, we do see the margins and profits increase finally, but despite revenue increasing, this was actually not attributable to more EV sales. No, in 2020, EV sales were down year over year, about 15% for BYD. So EV sales go down and margins and profits suddenly increase because the other, more profitable areas of the business are having a relatively bigger effect on the financials due to lowering EV production through COVID. Then we move on to 2021 and wow, what a killer year for BYD in terms of deliveries. Up 232% year over year in deliveries. Well, that's because the previous year was 2020 with COVID. So it makes statistics look good when you compare a particularly depressed year with a recovery year. Anyway, are you ready for it? Well, like I said, BYD don't generate great financials. They only appear to have a report for the first half of 2021. But if we double all those numbers, then we might get a rough idea of how they're performing on an annualized basis for 2021. Wow, we see the margins down now to 11%. Ouch. Could it possibly be the addition of all these BEVs that get such low margins? They are dragging the margins down of everything else, almost certainly. And we have revenue annualized up to a massive 178 billion yuan, which still only managed a 3.6 billion yuan profit. 2016, 100 billion yuan in revenue with over 5 billion yuan in profit. 2021, 178 billion in yuan, but only 3.6 billion in profit. The only difference, perhaps 500,000 more EVs sold. Okay, so to you BYD investors out there, what part of this makes it look like BYD are making profitable BEVs? They increased their BEV production to record highs and reduced their margins to record lows. No one else makes profit with BEVs, not even if you make your own low-cost in-house LFP cells, it would seem. How about we compare these figures with some of the other Chinese EV companies? XPeng, for example, has actually managed to get their gross margins as high as over 14% for their BEVs some quarters, but last quarter, XPeng lost 1.3 billion yuan. They delivered 42,000 vehicles. That's a net loss of over 31,000 yuan per vehicle, or close to US $5,000. $5,000, that's how much XPeng lose per BEV they sell. So if BYD make a profit, then somehow they must have gotten their manufacturing processes to a cost of $5,000 less than what XPeng can produce BEVs for. They both seem to have similar average production rates too. Well, I think BYD probably save as much as $30 per kilowatt hour with their in-house cells. With a 70 kilowatt hour battery, then it's a saving of around $2,000. That's quite a bit, but they would still need to find another $3,000 in savings. It's really tough to find that many costs to cut on something that is already trying to be so low cost. Oh, and even then, if BYD could achieve that, then they'd still only be breaking even. Still a long way to go until they can make any decent profits. BYD's actual annual profit is only around $600 million last year anyway. That is not a massively profitable company, yet sports a PE ratio almost twice what Tesla has. Tesla did about 5 times that much profit just last quarter. Of course, the vast majority of BYD sales are in China, and they received a subsidy of nearly US $2,000. This is also meant to end at the end of the year. So factor that in too. All this success BYD has had in not reaching a profitable BEV business, well, it was done on the support of the Chinese government, and it's about to end. In other words, BYD are about to lose a further $2,000 per BEV they sell. Ouch. Anyway, this video wasn't designed to actually make you sell your BYD stock. I was just trying to point out how it looks like BYD do not currently make net profits on BEV vehicles, and potentially the only real path for them to make any profit is by increasing prices, which will be harder when the subsidies in China stop. You might think we were waiting for battery prices to drop, but BYD already produce their own in-house batteries, and there isn't much more room to reduce cost. If you believe in the company for other reasons, then that's fine. I may not understand them the same as you. I'm just viewing them in my eyes the way I see the EV business. BYD is barely even a BEV company as it is though. If you think BEVs are the future, then why would you invest in a company that has half of their revenue coming from mobile handset components? I'm not joking. And then, of the vehicles they do sell, only about half of those are actually BEV. So only about 1/4 of the revenue from this company only comes from BEVs in the first place. And if they want to increase that BEV revenue, it has to be done by reducing profits. Not the growth path I like to see for my investments. This is a company that hasn't really demonstrated they can successfully make profitable BEVs, with no future plans of seeing that occurring, as they don't seem to be able to hit volume production to get costs down to make a profit. They also might struggle to raise their prices due to being the lower end of the EV market, which means it will be hard to reach a profit in that direction. Sure, it has the rest of the business to carry its BEV business until such time may occur that they are able to generate profits. But if said time does occur, do you think these profits are going to be that good? I've researched BYD well enough to realise it's not very exciting. They don't seem to have any intellectual property that makes them stand out from anyone else, except arguably their in-house cells, which I don't think are overly complex. They are no different from any other BEV manufacturer other than that. They are also certainly no competition for Tesla. Nothing has changed. Tesla will just keep making as many cars as they can and sell every one. If you are a BYD shareholder and feeling a little disconnected, then please don't just insult me in the comments, but actually add something intelligent to explain what I have missed, rather than just calling me a Tesla fanboy. Anyway, this certainly doesn't look like a 10-bagger opportunity to me. The main thing is it is no threat to Tesla and shouldn't even be compared as an equivalent company. Anyway, there you go. I did your job for you. I proved why I find it very unlikely that BYD make any net profits from their BEV business. But if you want to prove to me why they are profitable, then please tell me. Thanks for listening. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon.